Tonight I will be ministering to us from two of the Gospels. We are not marrying them, we're just ministering from them. So if you will, turn with me in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 5. And the Gospel of John, chapter 11, excuse me. Are we all there? That shouldn't be hard to find. Mark chapter 5, reading from verse 21. And let me say up front that the two texts are very long, but we are not going to read them all tonight, just sufficient to make the point. Okay? Just sufficient to make the point. So, starting in Mark chapter 5, verse 21. And when Jesus passed over again by ship unto the other side, such much people gathered unto him, and he was nigh unto the sea. And behold, there cometh one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name. And when he saw him, he fell at his feet, and besought him greatly, saying, My little daughter lieth at the point of death. I pray thee, come and lay thy hands on her, that she may be healed, and she shall live. And Jesus went with him. Everybody say Jesus went with him. Yes, he's that kind of guy. You call on him, he is going to answer you. And Jesus went with him. And much people followed him and thronged him. And a certain woman which had an issue of blood 12 years, and had suffered many things of many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was nothing better, but rather grew worse, when she had heard of Jesus, came in the press behind and touched his garment. For she said, If I may but touch his clothes, I shall be whole. And straightway the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of that plague. And Jesus, immediately knowing in himself that virtue had gone out of him, turned him about in the press and said, Who touched my clothes? Funny. And his disciples said unto him, Thou seest the multitude thronging thee, and sayest thou, Who touched me? And he looked around. He looked round about to see her that had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what she had done in her, what has been done in her, came and fell down before him and told him all the truth. And he said unto her, Daughter, thy faith had made thee whole. Go in peace, and be whole of thy plague. While he yet spake, let's not forget Jairus. He came, and he said his daughter was dying, and he asked that Jesus come quickly and lay his hand to save her. But while he yet spake, there came from the ruler of the synagogue's house certain which said, Thy daughter is dead. Why troublest thou the master any further? As soon as Jesus heard the word that was spoken, he said unto the ruler of the synagogue, Be not afraid, only believe. Let's look at John chapter 11. We're going to read the first 6 verses. Then we will go to verse 14. And then we will read verses 20 and 21. So if I go beyond what I just said, shout. Now a certain man was sick. Oh, tonight it seems as though it's for sick people, huh? A certain man was sick named Lazarus of Bethany, the town of Mary and her sister Martha. It was that Mary which anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was sick. Therefore his sisters sent unto him, saying, Lord, behold, he whom thou lovest is sick. When Jesus heard that, he said, This sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified thereby. Now Jesus loved Martha. Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. When he had heard, therefore, that he was sick, he abode 2 days still in the same place where he was. Verse 14. Then said Jesus unto them plainly, Lazarus is dead. I love this too bad. Lazarus is dead. Verse 20. Then Martha, as soon as she heard that Jesus was coming, went and met him, but Mary sat still in the house. Then said Martha unto Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother had not died. If we understand that Jesus is the personification of God's love, we would know that he loves all of mankind, not so? John 3:16 tells us that. For God so loved the world, not some, not a part, but the whole world, that he gave his only begotten Son. But what we read here is that Jesus specifically loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. Did you see that in the account? What this tells me is that Jesus had a special affinity for Martha, Mary, and Lazarus. There was a special affinity between themselves and Jesus, for as we read, it was that Mary who anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was sick. In addition to, if we go into the book of Luke, we would see in chapter 10 that on occasion Jesus dined at that home, at the home of Martha and Mary. Remember when Martha was cumbered about doing all the preparations and things, but Mary sat at the feet of Jesus with her mouth open, receiving all of his word. And Martha came complaining about Mary, how she not coming and helping. And she says, Martha, Martha, Mary desired the better part. Okay? So he had that relationship with Martha and Mary. So there was a special relationship which the Bible says he loved Martha, he loved Mary, and he loved Lazarus. When Mary sent for Jesus, she knew beyond any reason of doubt that he could come and heal her brother. There was no doubt about it. After all, she would have known of Jesus' power of opening blind eyes, unstopping deaf ears, making the lame to walk, the dumb to talk. He healed lepers, which was an impossible thing. No one had ever been healed except Naaman way back in the book of Kings. But Jesus healed lepers. So Martha and Mary would have known for sure that Jesus could have healed their brother. As a matter of fact, she said in verse 21, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. She knew that Jesus could have healed him. One would imagine that hearing Lazarus was sick and that Mary was the one who sent for him, that Jesus would immediately go to them, knowing of the relationship he had with them. Because as we look over into the other text, you would see when Jairus called him, the Bible tells us, and he went. But in this case, Jesus abode 2 days in the same place when he heard that Lazarus was sick. And what happened? Lazarus died. Lazarus died. Why? Because he was sick. But Jesus could have healed him. Why did he die? Because Jesus abode 2 days in the same place after he heard that his friend, the one he loved, was sick. He allowed him to die. We go to the next text in Mark. What we see there is Jairus coming. He's a ruler in the synagogue. He's of those people who rejected Christ as the Messiah, although the Bible doesn't say that Jairus did that. He could not have been one of those because he came to Jesus and fell at his feet. He was actually worshiping the Lord, and he besought him greatly, saying, my little daughter lieth at the point of death. Now, this is a real situation. She is sick, grievously sick. I pray that you come and lay your hands on her, that she may be healed, and she shall live. I don't know if when you read the Word of God, you can hear desperation in people's, what they're saying. But I could hear the desperation in Jairus' voice. A cry of urgency to save his daughter's life. The book of Luke tells us that she was only his only daughter and 12 years old. Every parent should be able to understand Jairus' plight and the urgency with which he came to Jesus. It is no wonder we read that he fell at the feet of Jesus and cried out that Jesus will come and lay his hands on him. Like Martha and Mary, Jairus would have also known of Jesus' healing powers. Otherwise, he would not have come to him. He would not have asked him specifically to come and lay hands. He was actually speaking about the method that Jesus would use in times past. So he must have seen Jesus at work. So like Martha and Mary, Jairus knew that Jesus could heal his daughter. What I see when Jesus said, I will come, I see the willingness of Jesus to immediately respond to Jairus' plea. To immediately respond to Jairus' plea, for we read that Jesus went with him. But then, look what happened. A woman with an issue of blood for 12 years, when she heard of Jesus, She came from behind the crowd that was around him, and she touched his garment, and immediately she was made whole. What's the point? Well, we will come to the point in a while. That started a commotion. Jesus turned around and asked, who touched my who touched my clothes? The disciples, not knowing that the woman's faith drew virtue out of Jesus, they started asking them, Master, you see the multitude thronging you and you're asking, who touched your clothes? Verse 33 tells us, the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what was done in her, came and fell down before him and told him all the truth. And Jesus said unto her, Daughter, thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace and be whole of thy plague. By a mere touch of Jesus' garment, his clothing, the woman was healed of a blood issue that she had for 12 years that no doctor could heal. What we are seeing here is the power of Jesus Christ to heal. But with all that was going on, Jesus was delayed in going to Jairus' home. I don't know if you realize that is what was taking place. Jesus was delayed because Jairus had an urgency in his voice. He was crying out that his daughter was dying. Come, please. And the Bible tells us that Jesus went with him. But then he had to stop because of this woman with the issue of blood. So what we are seeing here is that Jesus was delayed in going to Jairus' home. Can we begin to imagine the anxiety and the stress that poor Jairus was going through? I mean, let's face it, his daughter is dying. He comes to Jesus. Jesus agrees to go to heal her. And here it is, this commotion is taking place. Jesus is standing up. Things are happening. Jesus is asking, time is of the essence. My daughter is dying. Come quickly. But in the commotion, Jesus is delayed. Here was the only hope of his daughter's life being saved. And Jesus was delayed. And then comes the dreaded news. Your daughter is dead. Don't bother the master anymore. Oh, I could imagine Jairus' heart must have sunk down to his feet. As a matter of fact, I can't even imagine the pain, the hurt that he must have experienced at that time. A few moments ago, Jesus was willing to come. And this, because of this woman, he had to stop. And that little moment caused his daughter to die. Poor Jairus. Like I said, we could never imagine how he may have felt at that time. But as verse 36 tells us, as soon as Jesus heard the word that was spoken, he said to Jairus, be not afraid, only believe. If we go back to the question with Lazarus, I don't think I read that verse when Jesus said, if you would only believe, you will see the glory of God. Did I read that verse? Somebody said, don't know. Well, you're not listening. I didn't read it, but it's there. Believe me, verse 40, yes, I didn't go down to verse 40. Martha, did I not say unto you that if you would only believe, you will see the glory of God? And here is what he's saying to Jairus. Only believe, do not be afraid. Could I remind us tonight that even when there is no hope, even when there is no hope, there is always hope in Jesus? I want to say that again. Even when there is no hope, there is always hope in Jesus. Because what we are seeing, if we know our Bibles, we would know that the end result of Lazarus and the end result of Jairus' daughter is the same. They were dead, and Jesus raised them from the dead. So we are, in both cases, Martha and Mary would have had a hopeless situation, and in Jairus' condition, he would have had a hopeless situation. But Jesus got in the mix. And when Jesus is in the mix of hopelessness, there is always hope. Why? Because he is the God of the impossible. He is the God of the impossible. But that's not the message. Although that is a message. We preach two messages tonight. He's the God of the impossible, first message. Tonight, by the Spirit of the Lord, I want us to look at 5 similarities. 5 similarities between these two accounts. 1. In each case, when Jesus was called to the sick, the situation grew worse. Not so? Of course it got worse because both people died. How often in our own life situation, having cried out to Jesus for his intervention in any situation or circumstance in our life, rather than it getting better, the situation grew worse. See, it's not only us. Happened with Jesus in person when he walked the face of the earth. The situation grew worse, and he was right there. Number 2, in each case, the sick person died. That's all? Talking about similarities. Number 3, in both cases, when the situation became impossible, Jesus used the word believe. In the case of Lazarus, Jesus said to Martha, verse 40, said I not unto thee that if you would believe, you will see the glory of God? And to Jairus, immediately as he got the bad message that his daughter had died, what did Jesus say? Be not afraid, only what? Only believe. And if we know our Bibles, we would know that in each case, the impossible became the impossible because of Jesus' intervention, when both persons who were dead were raised back to life. And the last similarity is what the message is for us tonight. Anybody want to take a guess? The last similarity between the two situations, in each case, there was a delay with Jesus in attending to the call for help. Do you all see that? There was a delay in each case. In the case of Lazarus with Martha and Mary, and in the case of Jairus' daughter, in each case there was a delay. In the first instance, Jairus' delay was about as a result of the woman with the issue of blood. And in the case of Lazarus, Jesus abode 2 days still in the same place where he was after he got the news. But notwithstanding Jesus' delay, the result for his call was not denied. Notwithstanding Jesus' delay, the result for the call for him to come was not denied. In spite of how impossible it seemed, because Jesus is the God of the impossible. What is impossible with man is impossible with God. It is possible. Sorry, Lord, forgive. Jesus' delay was not Jesus' denial. And that is the message that God has for you tonight. It's a message that God has for me tonight, because I have been calling upon God and I am still waiting on him, and I think somewhere along the line there must be a delay. Is there anyone here tonight who have been calling upon the Lord about some situation or some circumstance and there seemed to be a delay? Let me see your hands. Oh boy. See how God knows exactly what message to send for us? If you are here tonight with a matter, well, not if again, because you raise your hands. Since you are here tonight with a matter before the Lord, if it is indeed a genuine matter, now this is important, huh? It has to be a genuine matter. It can't be any whimsical matter you have before the Lord. How many of you know at times we just cry out to God about things that we could really do without? And we must understand that when we call upon God for an answer where another person is involved, hold on, listen to this carefully. When we call upon God for answers where another person is involved, we must understand that God does not interfere with a person's will. He leaves the person's will intact. He will not interfere with the person's will. If he did, then the devil would have the right to interfere with our wills, which he doesn't have. Our wills are sovereign. God doesn't interfere. So if we are praying about a matter concerning somebody, whoever that is, we must understand that God is not going to override their will and have them do what we are praying for. It's not going to happen. What has to happen is God has to use circumstances. He has to use situations. He has to go around that person's will to bring them to the place that we are praying for them. And if we don't understand that, we would think that God is not answering prayers at all. That is not a delay by Jesus, that is a delay by the person in not responding to what God will have them do, because they exercise their own will. So if it is not a matter like that, then we must know what God says in both cases. Only believe. Only believe. Not the kind of mental assent that we Christians have about belief. You know, we go about saying, I believe in God for this. I believe in God for that. I believe in God for the... you could believe God for everything in your own mind. That doesn't make it happen. But I will tell you, if what you are believing God for, He has said it He has said it in His Word, then you can believe His Word and hold on to that. And in spite of delays, you don't move from your belief. This is what Jesus said to Jairus. I mean, let's face it. Jairus just heard his daughter is dead. That's the ultimate. Where are you going beyond that? But Jesus says, don't be afraid. Only believe. That belief is not a mental assent to something. It is putting your complete faith and trust in God, knowing that He is able in spite of ruling out the will of a human being. He is able. God is able. So why isn't it happening now? Well, the message is Jesus' delay is not a denial. In His time, He makes all things beautiful. In His time. Yes, we get anxious because Jesus wearing a different watch than us. His watch not keeping our time, and we get anxious. But if we go through from Genesis to Revelation, we will read about God's timing in the fullness of time. It's always in His time. It's not in our time. So what are we to do in the meantime? He says, be anxious for nothing. But with everything, with praise and thanksgiving, make your request known unto God. Be anxious for nothing. Stop looking at the time. He does carry the same timepiece as us. Be anxious for nothing. The message for us tonight, and notice I said for us, is that Jesus' delay is not Jesus' denial. He delayed Himself with Lazarus because He knew what He could do even if Lazarus died. Why did Jesus delay? He must have had a reason. I don't want to go into that aspect of it, but if you would get back into the text, we would see that when Martha said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Jesus looked at her and says, Martha, your brother shall rise again. Martha said, I know, Lord, in the last days, in the resurrection. Jesus looked at her pitifully and said, Martha, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And he that liveth and believeth in me shall never die. Martha, you believe that? Yeah, Lord, I believe you're going to raise up in the... It's like Jesus had to say to him, did I not say unto you, if you only believe, you will see the glory of God? Well, this is what God is saying to us tonight. In spite of what seems to be a delay, or it's a delay. It doesn't seem to be, it's a delay. In spite of the delay in answering, it is not a denial. We just have to continue believing, trusting, having faith and trust in God. And as he says in Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, don't lean to your own understanding. God, this understanding, what it does for us. Our understanding carries us all over the world and shows us everything wrong. It doesn't show us positive things that are always negative things. Don't lean to your own understanding. Only believe. Jesus' delay, the message for you tonight, the message for me tonight, Jesus' delay is not a denial. It doesn't mean that he has denied you your request because there is a delay. Could you receive that message tonight? Could you receive that message from God tonight? From the Spirit of the Lord. Merging two texts to make the point to us tonight that his delay is not a denial. Could you stand, please? Could I ask you to put back that line on the board? Hello? The line that said, Spirit, lead me. I say already, you're good, man. You're real good. You know, we sing songs. We sing songs, huh? But do we allow the words to pass beyond our hearing and get into our understanding? Okay, look at the words on that board. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. We're going to have a lot of delays to get there. Let me walk upon the waters. Wherever you would call me, take me deeper than my feet could ever wander. And what will happen? And my faith will be made stronger. You see the ways of God? That's God. That's God inspired. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. You know what you're saying there? You're talking about trusting regardless, you know. Even as in the case of Lazarus and Jairus, dead. Or rather, Martha and Jairus, dead, but trusting, believing. Take me deeper. You want to be taken deeper than your feet could ever wander? Could we sing it again? Let's sing it again. Let the words minister to us really.
Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior.
Spirit lead me is a request insofar as the song is concerned. But I happen to know that whether we request it or not, He's going to lead you. He's going to lead you. Because without faith, it is impossible to please God. If you're here tonight and I'm not going to call you if you are experiencing a delay, because then the whole church will have to be at the altar. But we did touch on two situations where there was sickness. So let's let the Spirit of the Lord work with that aspect of the word. If you're here tonight and there is some sickness in your body that you need a prayer for, come, we will pray with you. And if you are running out of patience with the delay with Jesus, well, you could come too. We will pray for you to have patience, but I must warn you what happens. Okay, I must warn you, according to James, the trying of your faith is what works patience. Okay? So either way, you can come and we're willing to pray with you.
congregation may be seated if you